Greetings once again. Today's talk focuses on Elon Musk and Tesla's need for speed, as well as Daimler's no clue after 5 years or on batteries, and this is both in trucks and in cars. And then finally, we're going to be looking at something I want to call custom batteries for your vehicle. Greetings once again. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks for joining us. If this is the first time on your channel, please take time to like and subscribe. We also have our Patreon link below and would appreciate your support. Our goal is to improve the camera that we're using as well as sound quality, and would love to get your assistance in that regard. Today's talk focuses on the fact that, the one last note I want to also make is that we'd like to ask that you at least watch 10 or 15 seconds of our ads. We're going to try and keep them as low as possible, probably one per 5 to 6 minutes of show. So we'd really appreciate your support of the channel in that regard as well. So today's talk focuses on the fact, initially, on Elon Musk's need for speed. I thought the comment was interesting because there was actually a movie in which that thought was presented, and I just thought that was kind of fascinating. Elon has this thing where, for example, with the semi, he was articulating how fast the semi could move, and I think the speed of the semi is a performance variable that does matter to customers, but I think the top of the line is, does it work and is it available? And then you kind of move through the list of other priorities. I decided to focus on the need for speed today because there was a notice that came out yesterday regarding the fact that the Better Business Bureau gave Tesla an F. And the basis of that, from the article that you can find in, I believe, electric.co, suggests that there were, I believe, 80 complaints, and it looked at how the company handled the complaints by customers, and based on the handling of those customer complaints, they got an F. Now, I just find it interesting because what I'm noticing is that, and I brought up the speed comment because one of the goals that Elon articulated for the new factory was the fact that if you have robots in operation, the goal he had in mind was, could you produce cars at a jogging pace rather than have them, the alternative of the normal sort of slow pace of how cars are built and delivered. Elon is also famous for the fact that a lot of the time his managers will give him time frames for when things might be completed, and he's famous for cutting that time in half. So I think there's really a game of tell Elon what he wants to hear, you still know the realistic time, you missed the time, and then now you have this problem of he's got egg on his face relative to customers because the time of completion he gave was one number, the realistic sense of what managers had of what would happen is a totally different number, and how these two come together is the result of deadline deliveries that we're seeing that come from Tesla. So another sort of speed element and process element I thought interesting from Elon is that, as you'll recall, a year and a half ago, Elon talked about the fact that with all the sensors that he's using in all of the vehicles now, combined with the software, Tesla's ability to deliver the autopilot system was already superior to what Mobileye was doing, and therefore there was an easy transition that Tesla would do. I actually had an opportunity to watch the transition between the old and new, that's Autopilot 1 and 2 to Autopilot 2 and the software. And I have to admit that I was really shocked at the number of features that were not available, particularly initially, with the newest version of the Autopilot and sensors. And I think that it's, over the past year, we've seen a number of executives get fired who were managing the software side of this issue, and in an attempt to get the speed and performance that Elon wanted. But again, we go back to the fact that Tesla's on a real need for speed and time to market program right now. So one of the things we haven't heard from Elon is, hey, how is our quality and how are we going to deliver great quality to our customers? And this kind of brings up, and hence the reason why I wanted to cover the need for speed. I wanted to encourage you guys to really take a look at the Toyota process of how they do production, because the Toyota process is the emphasis on quality and minimizing defects. And this, as we've discussed, shows up in that customers get cars that work well, they last a long time, high resale values, low customer complaints. So there's a number of sort of yields that one gets from the emphasis on quality of production versus speed. So I wanted to sort of bring this up because I think that as you get into understanding how vehicles are built by different manufacturers and why, I think that you'll start to get a sense for how and why it is that, where the Tesla emphasis is not on this, and it kind of shows up in the customer experience. Still think it's a great car, but I think as a customer, it prompts you to start broadening your thinking plan about how to manage this issue if you're current owner or potential owner, in terms of identifying a collection of information that allows you to deliver a set of sort of quality of execution from a customer service and a parts standpoint that works. The final example I want to give of this is that we've discussed this several times, but one of the challenges that Tesla has is that there's a continuous improvement process on all parts, and they're 80% vertically integrated. So one of the challenges many customers have had is if you need a part for your vehicle, it can take a very long period of time, maybe even 8 months on certain parts if there's an accident, etc., simply because all the attention is really on speed to market of new products, as well as the fact that they have to maybe make the product you need because all those products are tied up currently in production. The second area I wanted to cover today is getting back to Daimler. And over the weekend, I was doing some research, and I had a mind-blowing sort of quote that I read from a gentleman named Mr. Daum, who's the head of Daimler's trucking. And what he suggested was at the 5-year mark, Daimler has no idea what happens with the batteries. And I was kind of shocked when I read that, because there's all the, at least once a week, every 2 weeks, there's a discussion of a new company that has a new car out, and this car is going to be a Tesla killer, and it's terrific, etc. The nightmare, though, for the entire car industry is everyone's relying on batteries coming out of Korea. And if you look at the numbers, the highest densities were coming out of Panasonic before they started working with Tesla. Now Tesla has the Gigafactory. So Tesla can not only tell you how the battery is going to perform at 5 years, they're giving 10-year guarantees to vehicles like trucks on how those batteries will perform. In the case of Daimler, we kind of know the Korean manufacturers that are doing their batteries. The answer to what happens at 5 years is that the battery degradation can be between 50 and 60% on that battery. So trucks that are getting 125 miles of range, once those vehicles are 5 year into process, you now have them delivering 30 to 50 to 60 miles of range. And that difference is so great that one wonders, what exactly could you do with those trucks if they were originally planned for a longer range solution. So all this said, I'm fascinated by the fact that, you have Daimler, the largest truck manufacturer in the world, one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. I just think it's mind-blowing here to have a company the size of Daimler be sort of caught flat-footed by a company as small as Tesla is, and how the future lines up relative to this is pretty amazing and interesting. In particular, as we know, one of the stories that I cover as heavily here, but I think is fascinating, is the whole discussion of where are we going with the trucks once they hit the markets? How long will it be before the folks like Tesla or the folks like Daimler are able to catch up with these solutions and therefore deliver quality products that make them competitive with Tesla? And from what I'm hearing, if they don't have any idea what happens with their batteries after 5 years, and we can predict it because we know what's been happening for users that have been using those batteries in a regular car setting, I think it's amazing. The final item that I wanted to sort of roam into today is what I call custom batteries that are sort of on the table for Tesla. One of the theories that's been going on with both Tesla and others is that Tesla's battery advantage will be completely destroyed by great manufacturers around the world in 2 or 3 years and put everybody on the same footing, at which point being attached to a battery factory will be a disaster because you have all these costs that you're carrying that other manufacturers don't. Currently, we're not in that situation, and it looks like the number of years to that situation keep getting pushed back further and further, which means that competing firms that are out there, are in kind of a stuck position. Right now, what I mean by stuck position is Daimler's defining the response to Tesla right now. That response is that you build a very expensive truck in a prototype phase where there are 100 to 300 units. You distribute those to customers and literally wait until you have battery capacity that allows you to do more. The nightmare is that, Tesla in the meantime is building and establishing relationships with your current customers in the electric space. And pretty much you're in a horrible position relative to Tesla. And the hope is that your suppliers of batteries can eventually catch up before the Tesla sort of footprint is too great. Kudos to Tesla and where the emphasis has been. Kudos to the fact that they are still 5 years ahead. And during those 5 years, they can put out a lot of products across all their product lines that allow customers to get a satisfactory experience. And one of the other nightmares that I'm seeing right now is that there's a cycle time that most people use for trucks. And that cycle is you get the vehicle, you run it 100,000 miles approximately a year, and it comes off lease, or you switch out every 5 years. If Tesla's target is 1 million miles, and that's the warranty, and I think that'll cover both the battery and the drivetrain, now you're talking, there's a whole bunch of business that would normally be there in another 5 years for different companies that disappears. So I just think that the Tesla solution ends up choking off many other entities in the process. The third and final item I wanted to cover today is the more established is focused on Nikola, and the fact that the more established Tesla becomes, the nightmare for Nikola of bringing a product to market becomes more and more difficult to actualize, realize. So what I mean by this is that I spoke with a trucking executive who has 10,000 trucks on the road, and we were talking about Nikola and their situation, and he pointed out to me that, hey, you should realize this. We're into long-haul trucking, an area that Tesla's not focused on right now. The problem that Nikola is having is in short-haul trucking, which would be within freight yards related to shipping. There is already hydrogen in the form of hydrogen electric in competitors that are pretty thick in that space. So the main niche, once Tesla hit market, is long-range trucking. Right now, most truckers who have to deal with truck ownership do not want to deal with gas-powered trucks. And the reason is that when you're on a long haul in the middle of nowhere, who's going to fix, number one, where do you get parts for it? Number two, who knows how and can fix the vehicle in a timely fashion so don't lose your load or lose a whole bunch of time in the process. So what this means then is that if you'll note with Nikola, when they started out, their goal was to go electric, but with range extension using gas. The long-range truckers were saying, hey, gas is not of interest to us because of the problems articulated. And Nikola, to their credit, made a quick pivot over to hydrogen. The challenge, though, with hydrogen is that unless they can get to market fairly soon within the next couple of years, they could end up with a whole bunch of happy Tesla customers trying to figure out how to extend the range on their vehicles or supercharge them into longer ranges. So it creates a very, very small niche for Nikola to operate. And it might be possible, based on the attitude of owner-operators and long-range trucking companies, that thing is dead on arrival because of the repair problems that we just discussed. As we've covered in other shows, I don't know if you noticed, but one of the big issues for truckers of all types is the amount of time on your road tells how much money you make. So downtime related to inability to get parts, inability to get repairs, etc., is a complete disaster. And the huge footprint of Teslas, around the world allows those customers to be comfortable in their ability to get parts and service needed to keep their vehicles on the road. The final note, and it's a quickie one, is that we're now into the third week of April. Impressively, Tesla supposedly delivered 2,000 vehicles while they were on shutdown mode during a factory redo. So I'm surprised to hear this, intrigued as to how in the heck did they pull that off. But if they did, I think it's great. We're going to be hearing news on the factory being in motion, and I look forward to being able to report on that. I thought we'd have more information than the numbers they reported in terms of maybe video or other proof that the new changes are working. So few items to cover there. Interesting to note kind of where we are relative to the Daimler and Tesla competition, if you will. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Please take time to like and subscribe. We could really use your support on Patreon to work on improving overall equipment and performance. Peter, I wanted to thank you for the comments you made. You've made several comments. I think all of our viewers can see those today. And thanks for getting up this early with us. Our next, and all the items shared, I think are on point, and I would agree with the analysis that you're providing. Wanted to say thank you once again for joining us. We'll make a point of, I didn't realize it's 9 p.m. I guess you're in Australia, so it's an easy watch. But thank you for your comments and your continued input, and thanks for your Patreon support as well. Wanted to also finally note there's a May 2 announcement coming up on numbers from Tesla in terms of earnings, etc. I think will be important to note. We also will be back on our usual Thursday schedule, and then back on Sunday at 7:30 a.m. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Tschüss, Max gut, German. Au revoir, French. Adios, Spanish. Lahit Road, Hebrew. Choda Hafez, Farsi. Nuff respect and walk good, man. Jamaican. And I hope you guys have a great day. And please take time to watch a couple of ads. It really helps our channel to exist. And thank you for taking time out to share some time with us. And look forward to any and all comments and suggestions about changes or subjects you guys might want covered by our channel. Have a great day.